Okay, then welcome everyone. My name is Stefan Lager. I'm in charge from the board of this working group that we have called Trends in Supply Chain Management. And what we are trying to do from the chamber is to exemplify how some of our members approach their production and value chains and what they see as the trends or what they are taking as a decision moving forward. And as part for that, maybe there is some chance for Czech companies to work as well and find some opportunities in these changes. So if we look back a few years, since 2000 actually, the value of goods traded globally has tripled to more than 10 trillion euros annually. And businesses have successfully implemented a lean global model of manufacturing. They have achieved improvements in inventory levels, on time, in full deliveries, and shorter lead times. However, what has happened over the last few years is that while the production networks were designed for efficiency and cost and proximity to markets, they were not necessarily done for transparency or resilience. And what we have seen with the trend in trade tensions and now COVID, of course, that has led to some speculation, at least, that companies could shift to more domestic production or look at more close, like regional sourcing instead. So what we have seen or looked at is that the trends that has affected the whole global value chains, they have included, for instance, the trade wars between the economic superpowers in the globe. We have seen governments act to bolster domestic production of some goods, vaccine, for instance, that they seem essential or strategic from a national security or competitive perspective. We have also seen new technologies like artificial intelligence. We have these computer chips that are going in everywhere. And they are challenging the old assumption that resilience can only be purchased as a cost of efficiency, which is not necessarily the truth anymore. And then, of course, companies started to base location decisions on other factors and just cost, including access to highly skilled talent or highly skilled workforce. We are looking at supplier ecosystem. We have looked at sustainability. We're looking at infrastructure, business environment, etc., etc. The results have been that value chains and trade is becoming more regionally concentrated, particularly within Europe and Asia Pacific. And this has enabled companies to serve major markets quickly and responsively. So this is what the Nordic Chamber have been interested in looking into, specifically hearing what our own members are doing in this respect. And we would therefore like to welcome two of our members here today and see what their take on this is. So I will hand over right now to our moderator, who will describe a little bit more what is going to happen and how we can have questions and answer sessions as part of this presentations. Lucas, unmute, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Sorry for being muted. And we will cover the topic you just introduced, and we will have three presentations of people or experts from the field. So let me introduce these speakers who will cover the topic of international supply chains. First, in few minutes, will be Michael Schjelgaard, who is Managing Director of the DSV company, which is a big multinational logistic and transportation company. His expertise is air and sea freight. Then Petr Chocholatý will take his part. He is managing director of the same company, the SV road division. And last but not least, Jan Soderlund will be the third guy here to speak, and he is indirect purchasing director of the SKF Sweden. So we will discuss the topic, and I think, as I already said, it's a very timely topic because of current situation with supply chains worldwide. We face, I think, an shock that is really enormous and unprecedented because of the pandemic situation and the situation afterwards. We are now facing with huge delays with supplies of, for example, semiconductors. Even Czech companies in automotive sector, for example, are hit by this crisis very seriously. So our overall economy, not just the Czech economy, but European economy and economy in a worldwide, globally can be affected by this phenomena, which is an outcome of the last year pandemic. And we are now trying in a hurry to produce as much as possible of these goods that weren't produced last year because of closings and lockdowns of economies in Asia, in Northern America, and Europe. And of course, this has led to big problems with, for example, container shipment, as I already mentioned, the Suez crisis, but it was just a tip of an iceberg. We have a long-term problem with that, and it's already a threat from macroeconomic view, as these delays and problems with materials and supply changes are affecting consumer prices and producer prices. So we can expect quite high inflation numbers from
logistics. There's open positions. We are placed in 2 locations in ANC. Here we have our shared head office with Road and Solutions here in Pavlov. And then we have a small office and a warehouse in the airport. So if we then jump into what it's all about supply chain, then if you go to the first point, I will try to give you a little light on is air freight. So next slide, please. Yeah, I have not personally myself been in an airport since I came in March last year with one of the last flights coming in before there was this total lockdown. I just put this slide in here to give an idea what it was before and what we are facing now. Out of Europe, as you can see an example, there were 60 long-haul routes who had more than 6 flights a day at that time. Now we have, as you can see, only a few routes, we have 6 flights a day. So if we go to the next slide, please, Lea. Due to that, then the global capacity of moving air freight have declined average 17%. This year is from January. A little things have happened since then, but there you can see that, of course, there are some areas who have been more hit than others about the decline. But that said, is one of the reasons is, of course, that when the pandemic hit us, really, it came here in March, but it started there in January. As you know, all passenger flights was more or less cancelled. if we go to the next one, Leah. If we take Prague as example, the drop in passenger was almost 80%. And then you say, okay, what has that to do with my supply chain and air freight? Yeah, about 60 to 70% of air freight cargo is transported as belly cargo on passenger flights. So together with your suitcase when you're going on holiday, there are also bricks from Lego or insulin from Novo or whatever have you. So of course it have a great impact when the passenger flights are suddenly grounded. Right now we are down 65% of what we had before. If you look at Prague Airport, and as a Prague situation, we lost, which was very beneficial for the cargo itself, the direct routes to China, to US and Korea, meaning that cargo was piling up all over. I tried to illustrate on the slide on the right side just what happened with the rates. If you go in and look at the export from Czech Republic to some of our main destinations, US, New York and Chicago, then you can see before COVID, we were talking rates $1.50. And when it escalated over here summer, you were up almost more than double, and you still can see here in March that it is still hit a lot. Also, the imports have been hit quite a lot. They're struggling a lot, our colleagues in the air freight team, to get things flying. I just put on an example here, as you can see, from Friday, booking on hand, backlog as today. That is the message we got on a weekly basis from our Shanghai, Hong Kong, China offices. They had inbound for Europe 150 tons. They couldn't find space. Trans-Pacific 280 tons. It's a lot which are left behind. That of course means that there are, as you said in the beginning in the intro, that have been delayed in the supply chain and in the production, and that is correct. What can you then do? We have one advantage, being as big as we are. Therefore, we have put up our own charter network. When we took over Panalpina, they had their own charter. They didn't own it, but they had it on a contract, long-term contract. And actually, I heard rumors at that time when we took over that we would give it up because it was loss-giving at that time. But luckily, we didn't do that because those who could play a different role on the market was those who had access to capacity. So today we are operating, put down here now, 747 Boeings in our own network. Actually, we increased it with one more plane last week. They're opening up a new route. So if you go to the next slide, Leah. This is now the routes that we need to serve with our own so-called charter flights because there are no other options. And as I said, then we have added one more last week that we are now flying into Chicago to this new airport, Rockford, close to Chicago. And we are not the only one who is trying to find out alternative. Emirates took out 10 of their 777 and removed all seats to be able to at least try to fulfill some of the demands from their clients using their former passenger flights as cargo flights. And when we will see an improvement in the situation is very hard to predict, because if you read the magazines and you read what the different airlines are saying, you can just take a look when you're passing Prague Airport. There are flights all over, grounded there for a long time. Emirates, KLM Air France have grounded their A380s for a longer period. They were not going to fly before earliest 22, maybe 23, because there's no need for planes that big. The Swiss have reduced their fleet with 15% and so on. So when will we see improvement in the air freight market? I don't see it coming before we will have a more normal way of living, meaning more people who will be traveling, and then you will have more flights coming up. It is not something that will happen overnight. You can just, again, if you look at the application for Prague Airport, then you can see how few flights there are on a daily basis compared to what it was years back. So I would say before we get it under control with the vaccinations and people will start traveling again, then still you will see that we are very depending on charter flights that we have put up. Like we have, I know our competitors have done, at least the biggest one, have done similar. And it keeps the rates up to a very high level. And they have improved a little bit here compared to 2 months ago, but I believe that we will see it will maybe decrease very little rest of the year, that it will still be on the high end. So if we can go to the next slide, yeah. Sea freight. As it was said earlier, you can jump to the next one because this was just so I had time to have a little water. It has been mentioned about the pandemic, and it has been mentioned also now with the Suez. And as you can see now with this illustration, actually 90% of all cargo, and then of course it do not include bunker, coal, fuel, and all that, but let's say cargo that can be palletized or somehow loaded in that way is going by sea, and out of that is 70% by container, and then out of that 12% is going via Suez. So when you are having this issue with Ever Given, as you can see on the picture, then it creates a problem. Can we jump to the next one? But then a statement is also, is the pandemic or Suez, is that a black swan event? We have had a pandemic before, we will have it again. The question is when it will be coming. The Suez issue, you will also have again. Ever Given is still arrested in Suez. I just checked here this morning. They will not release it before they claim $1.2 billion to rescue the vessel. Out of that, the $400 million is because Egypt said they lost reputation because of that. I can't see they did that, but never mind. You have other issues like the war or the situation in the Middle East. You have seen before. We have had the attack in the Hormuz Strait. We had a few years back. We have a cyber attack who were especially harming Maersk and the ports as well. So it will come also in the future. If we go to the next slide, Leah. What happened here, if we take a look and we make the graph on a baseline 0 as an indicator, then when the pandemic hit us, then there were a decline in the cargo going down because, yeah, factories was closed down, people were sent home, production was stopped, blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly things are starting up again. And then you can see from April last year and up to now, then things have been growing. Suddenly, new markets opened up, e-commerce boomed, people who had to stay home for home office, they ordered a lot, they needed new computers, we need new mobile phones, we need new flat screen, blah, blah. So actually, suddenly, you could see there was a huge demand of transportation needed. If we go to the next slide, please. This, of course, also had an impact on the rate. I just took a few examples here, what happened. And before the corona, if you took example from Shanghai out of China, if you took a container, then you paid average $2,000 for a container. And that has been pretty stable until we came here to November, December. Then suddenly, because of lack of shortage of containers, then suddenly the rates gone up 400% more or less. The reason is that a lot of containers in the beginning of the pandemic was piled up mainly in US because the factories was closed down. So the containers were stocked in port, and before they were then back on work in US and they have the containers empty, then they haven't not any exports. So there were no containers going back to China. So there were a huge lack of containers in Far East, and that caused that the rates gone through the roof. Can we go to the next slide, please? This is a graph who shows the container demand predictably. This is what figures we know, and then we come into how it is today, and then what is predicted in the future with the market growth based on the economic. This is a forecast. It can be a little bit up and down, but as you can see, the graph should be rather stable from now, and not at least in a period 3-4 times based on the numbers who's coming out of the those financial institutes. And if you then go to the next slide, then we can see that, as it was mentioned before, we will have a more or less steady growth of cargo, but we will have a less capacity of supply, because before the COVID, actually, there were some of the carriers who have outphased some of the old container vessels. There were not so many new buildings in order as they've been used to, because at that time the freight rates was very low. So there were no interest in investing millions of dollars in new container vessels because they were sailing half empty. Now it's a different ball game. But as it is now, when the capacity is going down with those who are in the plan to get outphased, then you will have less capacity compared to the higher demand that there will be on cargo. And that is again pressing up the market. There have been now in the media that there have been ordered for about 15% extra capacity, that some of the sea freight carriers have ordered new vessels coming in. That of course will help the situation, but these vessels are not being delivered before earliest in 23. So if we can go to this, yes, please. Again, if you go back, it is not the rate prices as such, it's again an index. But if we see the development about the container freight in the years behind us and the years to come, then if you talk to people around, if you speak to the carriers and ask them to predict what will happen with the rates, right now the rates are high. And of course, they will go down, not dramatically this year seen. Hopefully, there will be an improvement. But for the next couple of years, what they are saying that is that we will see rates in a level what we had in 2010 to 2012, meaning it should be half of what it is today, but it should still be the double of the prices, which was the year pre-corona. So the situation about the container freight, I'll just add one. It is that, can you get your things out sailing if you pay a sky high price, and that is not to a certain degree you can pay to get it out, but of course all things have a price. Then there are a few alternatives to air and sea freight, and that is the rail freight from China, which is right now booming. We are not the only one who have invented this, but that could be an alternative. Of course, it's not the cheapest solution. It's cheaper than air freight. No, it's cheaper than sea freight, more costful than air freight, but that could be a solution if you have some crucial cargo that you need to move out. Then what can you do to safeguard your supply chain? Because that is also what our clients is saying. What can we do to avoid this situation? You can, as well as we do, try to do some allocation with carriers, that being air freight or sea freight. Then you can make, if you have 10 containers on a week or monthly basis to New York, for instance, then you can say, okay, I would like to book firm this allocation each week for the year to come to this rate agreed. Then if you can then make a deal with the carrier, which you normally sometimes can, then you agree on a price. And if you don't deliver the number of containers, then you more or less need to pay the price anyhow. The problem is if your business is increasing, that you are now not selling 10 containers a month or a week to US, but you are selling 20% more, then your upsale or your growth, you are not sure when it can go under keel. So it's not only a matter of price, because to a certain level, everybody have like a pain level saying that if the value of your cargo in the container is $40,000 imported, and you were used to paying $2,500 for the freight, then if you're suddenly paying over 10,000 US dollars, then the question is, are there then profit left in this business? So right now, if it's hard to predict, but the next couple of months or rest of the year, you will still see rates in the level we have now. And again, it reminds me, I don't know if the story is correct, but I was told under the communism here in Czech Republic that if you wanted a car, you had to save 10, 15 years to have the money to buy it. When you then finally had the money to buy it, then you have to wait 4 or 5 years to get the car. And when you finally got the car, then it was the wrong design and in the wrong color. And I mean, here, if you finally agree to pay $10,000 to get the container, then you have to wait 4 weeks to get the empty container. And then you have to wait another 2 or 3 weeks before it gets sailing. So I'm not trying to not being optimistic, but from a price point of view, a capacity point of view, we are having some big issues. So yeah, and the last one is just a short one to compare. Is not so important. I think it should have been skipped. But it was my 5 cents for Air and Sea, and we will take the. I don't know if you take the questions now or we do it after Peter's presentations.
Maybe I will just have one question, which is quite important, I think, and thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting indeed. What do you think is or should be the major lesson your business should take from all the pandemic situation? It's about that we should extend the capacities or to better cope with the crisis like the Suez one, or what in your eyes should be the major lesson we will take from the situation of the pandemic?
I would say one lesson that should be learned is that if you are running a business where you are very depending on that you have this your raw materials coming in a certain flow because you want to save warehouse costs, then you are really having a problem, because when this situation then occurs, then suddenly you will have face a production stop yourself. And that is what we see from many of our clients who have, let's say, built their business, that they are very short of stock, because yeah, having a big stock is costful, both for renting the warehouse, but also paying for the raw materials. Then of course they have a big problem. And it's a difficult situation, because if you look into maybe sourcing your products closer to where you have your own location, I mean, then you should of course compare the production cost. What will it cost to have it done here in Europe compared to Far East? And still for many years to come, I would believe that the production costs in Far East will still be so attractive that you will have a lot coming in from there. And then, of course, the margin you have on your product when you sell it out, of course, also depends how much you are impacted on rates going up. It's easier if you have a high-end product where, I mean, okay, of course, $7,000-8,000 per container is a lot of money. But if we are talking a full load of iPhones, that's a different ballgame than if you're talking a container full of a low price product.
So you don't expect any broad significant shortening of supply chains as an outcome of the current situation? Because some people talk about nearshoring and these phenomena. So you don't expect it. You still think that even with the issues in freight and transportation globally, it will still be cheaper to have these longer supply chains. Sorry.
Yeah, but I think when we come through this, and we will, then again, the advantage of sourcing it from Far East, for instance, which will still be the cheapest way, then we will still see a lot coming in from there. So until the costs are balanced a little bit way, then okay, right now people are suffering and they are paying more, and maybe they are losing money to fulfill some contracts. But when this is over, then we are back to the good old days, where then we'll then again have a nice profit on sourcing the cheapest possible way. And if you're doing that, yes, but then sorry to say, then you also have to pay when there are some obstacles on the way. Because if you should safeguard yourself 100%, then you should have an alternative of saying, okay, this product I'm right now buying in Beijing, I can actually buy in Bucharest. It costs a little bit more, but then I can have it in 3 days. But not much can be done that way, if you ask me.
And what do you think? That's my last questions at this time. What do you think about possible growing of geopolitical tensions, especially between Europe or West in general and China, because it could affect also the supply chains, and it could lead to some problems with supply chains as well.
I didn't get the first few words, but please once again at the beginning.
What do you think about the outcome or the influence of possible potential geopolitical tensions, especially between the West, between the United States and China, on those supply chains, especially, of course, from the Trans-Pacific one and the one from Asia to Europe?
Yeah, that can be an issue, but it's very political, and I will try to be neutral on this because there are, of course, things everybody can see that when they read open every newspaper today. There are some things going on in China which are in the West not seen that well, and then you have the discussion China versus US, and also you have it EU versus China. China have grown now to be such a big economy and such a big player, and I will not play political, but I would say we need to live with it. Then we are raising the flag and protesting from time to time from country to country, but it has come to that now that China is so strong, we cannot play without them. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. I have to say your description of our car market here in the Czechoslovakia during the socialism is or has been completely right. So that we had a period of time when you were waiting to get your car you already bought or ordered. So that's a great description of the reality then. So hopefully we will not have it the same anymore anytime in the future. So thank you very much, Michal. And now I would like to introduce your colleague from the same company, Mr. Petr Chocholatý, who will cover and who is responsible for road division. So Petr, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Hello. Following the previous presentation of Michael, I will also speak about supply chain, but from European perspective, meaning that the market will be a bit smaller. I will not read this presentation as you heard, I'm managing director of DSV Road in Czech Republic. We have approximately 300 employees, 9 offices in Czech Republic, and handling approximately 500,000 of shipments, consignments annually. As you can see on the graph on the right side, we are not just leader in Czech Republic, but we also belongs to the top 10 road freight transport providers in Europe. Next one, please. Just a few sentences about the road in Czech Republic. We have two divisions, international one and domestic one. Of course, we provide standard products as full load, less truck loads, part loads, and cribbage, and the same in domestic. And we have own domestic system, meaning that these 9 hubs are cross docks in each region of Czech Republic, which are interconnected with 9 night shuttles. And we cover Czech Republic with our distribution system within 24 hours. A part of it, we have also some products as insurance and short-term warehousing, etc. Now we are getting to the topic, which is Brexit and his impact on supply chain. As you probably are aware, UK, United Kingdom left European Union at the end of the last year, and before this change, it was much easier to have a trade between these two countries, between European Union and UK. Just for your imagination, there are really approximately 5 million trucks crossing the channel between France and UK, which is quite high volume, and harbors in both sides of coast are not prepared for these volumes to handle custom clearance there, to have a queues of the truck there. So that's why we are facing quite big troubles just now. Next one, please. I can see four main challenges just now. One is administrative burden, meaning that now all goods coming from UK to European Union or vice versa has to be custom cleared, meaning there has to be produced 400 million extra customs declarations, which is huge volume, and no organization can absorb this burden without changes in workload of organization or to outsource it or whatsoever. But we will get to this point later. So one challenge is administrative cost or administrative burden. Second is, of course, staffing changes. You need extra people, you need skilled people. And especially from a UK perspective, it was a big change because they cannot suddenly find skilled people in custom clearance. That's why, for example, DSV in UK outsourced this business in DSV Poland, meaning we have employed or recruited almost 150 employees in Poland to help remotely our UK colleagues to handle custom clearance. Of course, these barriers raised due to Brexit has an impact on delays, and that's why many companies decided to leave UK market, or UK market became a bit less attractive for them, and the sales between UK and European Union dropped down. Of course, there are also some negative impacts that when the cargo is delayed, customers are not satisfied, and feedback is negative, and all these negative issues. Then I go to the next one. This is an outcome from the survey made by some UK-based company. I just want to show you which areas of companies was mainly impacted by Brexit. Generally, you can see on the left graph that it's operations and sales, but it differs among the organizations types, meaning that, for example, freight forwarding companies and hauliers feel the most painful impact on operational side, because it's the Brexit requests much more care or communication between customs brokers, customers, about documents, about differences in invoices, and that's why it's very time consuming and there are operational difficulties for these companies. On the other hand, the manufacturers or consequently distribution centers feel drop in sales, because as I mentioned during the previous slide, there is drop down in sales due to less attractiveness or higher cost or higher barriers for the trade between UK and European Union. Next one, please. Now we are getting to few slides, to few graphs showing development. These two graphs are showing border crossing between EU and UK and vice versa. What you can see there, that before or in 2020, the volumes or crossing, not volumes, crossings of channel was higher than previous year. What was a bit unusual in that time was a small peak in the weeks 51, 53, meaning that in that time some of the companies wake up and find, okay, it's getting to be serious, this Brexit. And we don't have enough inventory in UK or UK companies in Europe, and they start to move as much as possible between Christmas and New Year. So it was a bit unusual in that time, because between Christmas and New Year season usually very low. So the companies started to build up their inventories in countries. But situation changed dramatically from the 1st of January, partly due to this inventory building, but partly because some of the companies didn't know how to sell the goods to UK, didn't understand the difficulties, and as you can see, the exports from European Union to UK decreased by almost 30%, and import almost by 70% compared to January previous year. So it was quite dramatic. You can see that the situation is, or dust is settling down just now. But speaking about all these barriers, or another way, transportation and transport cost or transport market is a supply-demand driven market. So meaning if there is a lack of the capacity, so then the prices are going down, and it's not so easy to look just on I don't know, price of the petrol and say, okay, it increased by 10%, so impact on the prices or costs are just 2%. I used some graphs from Timocom. Unfortunately, I found just some graphs for German UK market, because there was not enough information about Czech market. That's why I took our neighbors. You can see there that due to enormous volumes handled between Christmas and New Year, the prices went up dramatically. It went almost to I can't read it now, but the growth was around 60%. Speaking about export from UK from European Union to UK, but situation is settling down, and now it's a bit better. But if we compare it with previous year, we are still almost 20% above previous year baseline. But it's calming down and situation is improving. If you look at the graph on the right side, can you go back, please, Lara? On the right side, Then you can see that the top of the rates are in February, not in December, as in previous graph. This is probably a consequence of situation that the custom clearance in UK was so slow that some of the companies decided not to load any return loads or backloads from UK to European Union and go back empty to via channel and to load in Belgium or Netherlands or France some loads to avoid waiting there. That's why probably they found out that it costs much more for them to wait in UK for exports custom clearance from UK to European Union. So this is probably the consequence of this change on the market. Now, please, can we go to the next slide? This is another way how to, or another source showing price development. The previous one was transport exchange, where many companies can put their available loads, and other companies can find loads which fit them, and they agree on some rates, and that was a source of previous slide. This one is Transporion, which is another platform which are using bigger producers for communication with their contracted suppliers or pre-selected suppliers. So it's a little bit different source because they have already some contact these manufacturers and suppliers. But anyhow, if you look just on these yellow lines, you can see that in week 14, the prices, for example, on Italian UK market was just 3% above last quarter 2020. So it's showing that you can see also the peak there, peak in weeks 51, 52. But it's, as I mentioned several times already, it's settling down, and the prices are not so high as in January, February. So, for example, on this Italy market is plus 3%. Of next slide is France, Great Britain or UK, it's plus 17%. And I have another more graphs on next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, and there is a German market. You can see that it's more or less on the same level, and Polish market, it's also more or less on the same level. Next one, please. So all these influences I described in previous slides has impact mainly on transport costs. So I try to put them down to explain you why the prices are higher a little bit. But of course, you saw that in some market they are more or less on the same level, and that's because this market is really supply demand driven. So the main reasons are, of course, longer transit time because the trucks has to stop on France border, make custom clearance in UK, and generally we can say that it lasts minimally 1 day extra, and these haulage companies have to pay extra money for financing their trucks and salary of drivers. So that's why it's more expensive. Of course, there are some queues at customs offices, and sometimes we face the situation that, for example, customs systems in UK break down or fall down. So it was a bit unpleasant. Some of the companies, transport companies or providers, stopped their service, providing service to UK, and that's why also there is just now also lack of the capacities on the market. So that's why the prices in some countries are a bit higher. And as I mentioned, some of the we have decided to go empty back, so there is not enough truck for loads or direction from UK to European Union. As I mentioned, there is also lack of the qualified people or employees in mainly in UK, because after the Brexit, all UK companies which want to make some business with European companies, they have to make custom clearance. Yeah, so it was big shock for the market. Yeah, that's why we use this Polish colleagues in DSV. I decided to put 3-4 small slides about education, about documents you need to have for trade with UK. So can you move ahead, please, a little bit? The basic for this trading is to obtain, we call it EORI number, Economic Operator Register and Identification, which is a number which you can get from each customs office in Czech Republic, and it's mandatory to have it if you want to communicate either directly or via some broker companies with customs office. So it's must. There is no another way how to make a trade between UK and Union. Yeah. Next one. Yeah, thank you. Another mandatory requirements is an invoice, which is probably not a surprise for you, but we have lesson learned that a lot of customers were surprised that for this trade or goods exchange is necessary to add into invoices some new information. Because it has a huge impact on efficiency of customs process, and it should have also impact on delays or even confiscation of the goods if there are some wrong information. On the next slide, I prepare, thank you, I prepared for you the checklist. I'm not going to read it. But would like to point out that, for example, the last sentence or item, preferential sentence or declaration statement, is necessary if you want to avoid paying duties in UK, and if the goods is of origin of EU or Czech Republic. Yeah? Without it, your counterparty in UK should pay duties. Yeah, VAT is paid anyhow. Yeah, but so if you will get this presentation after our webinar, so you can go through. And if you have a question, then of course I'm free to help you. Based on invoice, you can issue export declaration. It's called in Czech Republic VDD as doprovodný doklad, and its a main purpose of it to prove for tax authorities that you are going to export the goods outside of European Union. Yeah, so you are probably aware of it, because it shouldn't be so new for everybody, because in Europe we have also another countries as Switzerland and Norway, where the custom clearance is necessary as well. But these markets are a bit smaller than the UK market. That's why we really experience huge misunderstandings or lack of experience of some companies which didn't know how to prepare export declaration for their goods. There is a transit documents, which is technically a form of guarantee that if goods disappear during the way from European Union to UK, that the duties and tax will be paid, and usually it's paid by a guarantor, which in most cases are some freight forwarding companies. There is some exception just now on the UK market that in many cases, transit documents are not requested, but it will change, I think, from the 1st of August, where it be a standard part of custom clearance. And then import declaration, which is the way how to import or buy of your goods in the UK, has to make custom clearance and pay the VAT and duties are assessed. Next one, please. I have put some useful links on this slide, so you can. Of course, there is also DSV article about impact, Brexit's impact on logistic, and I put there also email address to our manager of custom clearance if you need some consultancy or some help. So you can use these links. And on next slide, Lea, I have some small summary where I put, from my point of view, post-Brexit changes which has to be adapted by the companies. So the first one is reassessing supply chain. It was, yeah, surprise for some of the companies that it will not continue or flow in the same way as before Brexit. And there is minimally assessing is necessary. But for example, just for your information, some of the companies, mainly e-shops, which were sending goods to UK, decided to establish their daughter companies in UK to get UK EURI and to make custom clearance by themselves or via some broker companies in UK. The reason is mainly this is that these companies can send the goods to UK as a one shipment under one customs declaration. And before, if they have, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 consignees or buyers, it's more time consuming to send or to make custom clearance in UK 15 custom clearance and deliver it to the final consignee. So that's why it will be smart to reassess it. Of course, some updating of technology, mainly IT, is necessary as well, because suddenly the companies has to take care about this, about their HS code, meaning some harmonized codes which you need to put into customs documents, yeah, in X1, etc. So, or maybe also to look at it if EDI to your broker, customs broker, or to customs office should help. Of course, recruiting new staff, we have discussed it. Also, the outsourcing is one of the options, because probably the companies has no knowledge or limited knowledge of custom clearance, and that's why there are some brokers on the market which can help you with this. For example, just for your information, we as a DSV in Czech Republic, we have also customs department having just now 20 people, so we can help you as well with this situation. And last point is not challenge, but it's just to express that partly we have to be also patient, because everybody is learning how to handle these new issues, and it's visible that situation is improving week by week. So it's every week bit better than before. So we have to be patient. On the right side, there are some quotes of UK companies where they say how difficult is it mainly for them, or what they lost, or what are the difficulties they are facing just now. And actually, is the end of my, oh, no, it's not the end. Is the last slide. Just to know that on the Czech market, or almost in each country where DSV is located, we have 3 companies. One is RNC, one is Road, and the third leg is DSV Solution. It's a company deals with contract logistics. So just to let you know that we have also this leg or this business where we have more than 60,000 square meters of warehouses and almost 200 employees. And this is really the end of my presentation now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Petr. And we are a bit late. So some of our listeners and some people from the auditorium had to leave. So one quick question. What do you think should be, it's a similar question like before, should be the major lesson from Brexit? For example, in 2015, there was a talk about Grexit, or Greece leaving the European Union. So when there is another exit, maybe in the future, what should be the major lesson for companies in the international trade to take it from the Brexit? So what was, for example, the major mistake companies did or underestimated before the Brexit?
Yeah, it was this underestimation or limited experience of these companies with custom clearance. So lesson learned, and I think it's about preparation of these companies. Of course, some of the companies, bigger one, started maybe 2 months or in October or November. They started really preparation, and we plan with them or simulate with them data exchange and checking the invoices to be really prepared, and also to check database of HS code, because it was a really tricky point, or it's still a tricky point. So the preparation, communication, consultancy, and this kind of things are necessary. But if I should maybe mention another issue, which is more or less from inside of DSV, and it's also a combination of COVID lockdowns. I didn't believe really that we can handle this Brexit during the COVID, where more than 50% are on home offices, because it's freight forwarding is a business of people, which are communicating, which are handling the consignments and exchanging information. And it was really a huge change in our world, freight forwarding world. But I was positively surprised that we can handle it, and we can work.
So that's a positive from you. Thank you very much. I remind you, dear participants of this meeting, that you can still ask questions our speakers today. Now we will have the last one. So thank you, Petr, for your input. And after the session next, we will have Q&A session for all the discussions. So you may still, as I already said, ask questions via our chat room here on this platform, Microsoft Teams. So as I already said at the beginning of our seminar, the third speaker will be Jan Zordelund, who is Indirect Purchasing Director of the company SKF. SKF is Svenska Kullagerfabriken, and it is leading manufacturer and supply of bearing, seals, lubrication systems, maintenance products, mechatronics products, power transmission products. So it's a really huge company, so an important company in the international trade. So we can see and we can hear experiences from a concrete specific company, of course, experiences with its supply chains during this very challenging period, and not just because of pandemic it's challenging, but also because of the situation like the
Thank you. Lucas, and how much time do I have?
15 minutes.
Okay, no worries. And I will share my screen. I'm based in Gothenburg, Sweden. I'm Swedish, and then responsible for indirect purchasing. Let me just see. So you see my screen?
Yeah.
Good. So I will talk a little bit about, very short, about SKF Group, so you have a feeling for the company. One interesting reflection is also that I'm the customer then also of DSV, because we buy both air and road transportation from DSV, also from Panalpina that DSV bought. I will say a little bit about what we buy and also where do we buy from. And then I will focus a little bit about the last turbulent 1.5 years. What did we believe and what did actually happen? And then give you a flavor of the market right now, where what you have heard from DSV is one of my worries, but I will add some other worries. And then also, what do we believe from SKF will happen now going forward, and what do we do to mitigate the risks? So very quickly on SKF, founded 1907, bearings. A guy invented the self-aligning ball bearings. It didn't exist, fantastic products, and the export and development just increased the size of the company so fast. And today we are 41,000 employees. We have factories in 24 countries, 91 factories, but that's actually lower than 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we had 103 factories, so we are concentrating a little bit production. And we sell 500,000 different part numbers to 50,000 customers all around the globe. And we are one of the 5 biggest in the world and producing bearings. And last year we have had an okay profit and also quite good cash flow. The SKF Group, if you look in the middle, striving for green, that is now getting more and more important, and that's not what we just say, that is what we do. So we have promised our shareholders to be carbon neutral 2030, everything we do. And for transportation, for example, we are now measuring all the time our CO2 footprint on transportation. And we sell products, but we also sell services, rotating equipment performance, where we sell to a customer like a paper mill. We take care of the bearings, we measure the bearings, and we know when they will break. And then we make sure that we produce it 3 months before it breaks, send it there, and then we change it before it breaks. And we have many installations like that. And digitalization, new business model, innovation. SKF was formed by an innovation, and innovation is in the culture of the company. If you want to know more, you can look at our homepage about Reckoned Oil, where we recirculate oil that could support your factories. We are investing really a lot in our manufacturing now to automate it, and that is actually to be close to the customers in Europe, and other countries, but we can't produce in China, sending it to Europe and then deliver it to customer. They need their products fast. And what do we buy? This is what we buy. Direct material. Those are the things that goes on the end product. And the big part is, of course, steel. It could be steel that has been machined, it could be steel that has been heat treated. We don't buy that much raw material, it goes through some sub-supplier. So like 25% of the turnover of SKF, that is sending steel all around the globe. And then of course we buy electronics, sensors and other things. My area of responsibility is this. And this is the indirect thing that we buy that we don't put on the final product. And one of my responsibilities is also now to take care of the transportation purchasing. I can also say one thing. We are 3,000 persons in Sweden out of 40,000. So the head office is in Sweden, but the people sit all around the globe. Very, very global company. This slide shows our spend for direct material components. So it's 1.7 billion euro that we buy from 3,140 suppliers all around the globe in 36 countries. And the size of the ball, that is how much we buy. So you can see China, there you have a quite big ball. And then you have to the right, Korea, where we buy a lot. You have India. So Asia is quite important for us, both to our own factories, but also so export to Europe and Americas. And then you see a lot of our supply base in Europe. So this is the inbound, this is the transportation and to our factories. It's not what we sell to our customers. Here it's everything. This is both the transportation inbound to the factories, but it's also transportation where we send goods to our customers. And you see the air and ocean flow. It's a little bit what Mikael presented before, but this is our actual roads where we send our parts. And then we have road transportation. Here you have Europe as an example where we also work with DSV. Here you see also the flow in real life. Where is the supplier located? Supplier region. And to the right, you see our factories. And then if we talk about the situation right now and the crisis we have, then you can look at China. And on the top of China, you see a flow going from China. You see it goes to Europe. On the bottom of China, you see the flow going to Americas, China, and so forth. And then you see the rest of Asia on the top there. That is Korea. And you see big flow going from Asia to Europe. That's the main point. You don't see any Brexit problems here. Brexit problems, it's nothing compared to getting parts from China, Asia to our factories. That's our big pain point right now. And then just for fun, this is the flow then from suppliers in Czechia to our factory. So suppliers in Czechia deliver for, this is SEK, so it's about 8 million euro going to Austria, Germany, Poland, France and Malaysia. So that's where we send goods. And if we now look 1.5 years back or 1 year back, and then this is what we discussed around. First, we had the volume, but we had a huge uncertainty. We had this initial shock. We had to stop because we had furlough, we stopped the channels, we stopped production, we sent people home. Then quite fast, it was the restart. But then what will the new normal be? And this is what we said, how much less will it be? And that was completely wrong, and I will come back to that. So this is the same also. What did we believe? We believed in April that automotive will look different, reduced and changed. We were wrong with reduced because it increased. So we have a lot of production for automotive now. Is it changed? Absolutely. Because now it's the new products where we see in the coming years that electrical vehicles and hybrids, but mainly electrical. Travel will be reduced for several years. Mikael talked about that, and it will be reduced. If you look at ourselves now, I don't talk about tourism, I talk about business travel. So we have a decision now in SKF that we are not allowed to travel more than 50% of what we did 2019. And right now, we don't travel except China. China is up on 68%, so they have to reduce a little bit. There they have quickly gone back to normal. Oil, energy, steel, and service prices will dramatically reduced. That was correct if you look 3 to 6 months. If we look now, we didn't have any clue. That was completely wrong. Social distancing will reduce consumption. Not okay. People lost job, yes, but only in the service sector. And then tax income support package is correct. So here is a little bit the same. But just to gain time, I jump this one and go into what happened. So from SKF point of view, we dropped last year 10%. But in the end of the year, we just saw an enormous increase. It was a V curve. So we went back to level higher than 2019. And then, because of the uncertainty, we reduced number of people, we stopped buying, we saved money, we didn't travel. So in my area of responsibility, we reduced the cost with 17%, but sales only dropped 10%. So we had a fantastic result last year, and we haven't hired all the people, we haven't increased our cost level yet. Supply chain issues from the start, yes, that has been really tough, and it's still a huge problem. Just to get you the feeling for it, normally we have a target like 5% availability failures to our customers, which means that we should deliver to our customer when they have a request and only say no 5% of the cases. Now it's up on like between 15 and 25% no to customer. So the demand is much bigger than the availability right now. So it's a little bit the perfect storm for us right now. And then the same slides as Mikael showed. If you look here, the metal coil that is steel, you see unit goes down and then it just goes up. You look at the mineral oil, same. It goes down because everything stopped, but then it just goes up. The wood-based products, look at that. It decreased a lot. Now with the packaging supply, we buy wood from Russia, put it on stock. We finance the suppliers so that they can have wood to do the packages for us. That's one of the mitigation right now. Ocean rate, same curve as Mikael showed. So we negotiate monthly new rates. And then when everything is stabilized, we will do a big sourcing to set new agreements and review the supply structure. So today, increasing market demand, very strong V shape. And China, they are driving the economy, they are the engine. So we send a lot of things to China to support. We are investing like that a lot in China right now. We have this dope system with government pushing in money. And now we have a lot of expectation what will happen when Corona is off, what will happen Q3, Q4. So people are getting safety stock. They are buying now to prepare for the upturn. So you have this safety demand. So the bearing demand is above consumption. So everyone is building stock right now. And then the transportation shortage, you saw, I'm really worried about the slide that Mikael showed when you have the demand and availability of transportation in the coming years. That is not good for SKF. And in the supply chain, we increase production a lot, higher than before Corona. So we are increasing the shifts, we are hiring people. each factory are supporting each other just to be able to produce, because we are filled up. We have this steel shortage from China and India, both due to capacity in their factories, but also to get the transport. A lot of goods in transport, goods in transit. And yeah, what should I say more? Some uncertainties also when it comes to what will happen after Corona and the supply chain. So the future, the last slide. Transportation will be more expensive, and that's a little bit what Mikael said too. But we also believe that there will be further CO2 regulations. So that is the fear that the cost will not only be because of availability, it's also some taxes on the CO2 regulations. And the trade regulations, big question mark, but from the CEO and our management, they say purchasing, you need to prepare for both CO2 cost and you need to prepare for trade regulations. And then this cash situation with high demand and the risk for inflation. What we believe in SKF is that now we have a inflation because costs go up. But as long as there are availability so we can get what we want over time, it will not be a big inflation. But when Mikael showed his slide on the transportation in the coming 3-4 years, that is the thing that will give the inflation. And that's what we also monitor, steel supply, wood supply and stuff like that. But it's a big risk for inflation. So we localize our supply. We are now working on finding suppliers in East Europe for steel. We are looking at Russia. So we are moving supply from Asia over to Europe and also US and Mexico, because we have factories in Mexico. And the digitalization, a no-brainer. We have to be much more flexible in changing our supply chain. We have to have the overview. We have lost a lot of production because we have not had this 100% overview of the complete supply chain. A lot of investment is going on there in transport system and capturing the data, analyzing the data. Environmental impact of business, that will be top focus on the coming years. That will be, we will pay more for green energy and green transportation than dirty energy and dirty transportation. That will be clear. And the new normal for 2021-22, it will depend on US and China. What will it happen in US and China? If they increase, the rest of the world will follow. So that was my presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jan. I think it was, of course, very timely presentation, very timely topic. Thank you for it. What do you think about the development in the future? You already said it during your presentation that there is a risk of inflation, but do you expect that the localization of supply will be more broad phenomena or more pronounced phenomena, because you said it's in the case of your company? Do you see this in the cases of other companies as well that are globally present, or do you see it just as some specific
I think that is a trend. If I talk to other customers, other big companies in Sweden, it's localization. Everyone talks about localization. How can we have supply in closer distance to our factories? Because everyone have suffered so much now the last 6 months.
Uh-huh. So it's the major reason for it is it's a pandemic situation, and not, for example, the tensions between West or United States and China.
It's short term. It's to just do this so that we have better flexibility, better control, But the next longer term, that is actually the environmental footprint. That is to prepare for tougher requirements on CO2 footprint. And that is not something that we say. That is also a request we have from our customer. Volkswagen is our biggest customer in automotive. They follow up what we are doing. They have requirement in the agreement. We have to do it towards our end customers also.
It was very interesting in your presentation that you remarked you were too pessimistic last year when you were expecting the outcomes of the pandemic situation. What was, according to you now, with the benefit of hindsight, the major reason why you were so pessimistic? Was it a reaction of governments? You mentioned there is plenty of liquidity around due to central banks as well, or was that any other reason?
No, the big issue from management was that it was the social distancing. Everything was about social distancing. So we believe that the social distancing will reduce consumption, which means less sell of cars, less sell of things. But we were completely wrong on that because it was less services, but people got more money, so they spent it on new cars. Cars sell like it's incredible. We are shocked by the development in car sales in Europe. It just moves up.
So the impact of social distancing was not so dramatic at all as you would expect. Just
no. I mean, in purchasing last year, I was so happy because now I can reduce the price because we'll have a lot of available capacity everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was happy for a month when we actually reduced the prices, but then everything changed. So last year sale were unhappy, purchasing were happy because we could reduce prices. And later, now sales, they are really happy because they can, everything we produce, we sell. But purchasing, the only thing we do right now is to increase prices. And that's not fun if you're in purchasing.
Yeah, inflation pressures are really everywhere right now. So I think it's quite worrying for many, for ordinary people, for economists like me as well. So do you have some expectations or some forecast of the inflation pressures, let's say for this year, for the years ahead?
I've been talking to some banks. I've been checking this out, and then last week we had a big meeting to look at the inflation, and the banks don't believe in inflation this year. They said that 22 we might have about 3.8% in the US because US will have such a duped system as they are pushing in so much money in US right now. Because now US is better off than they were before the pandemic, but Europe are a little bit below. So, but you see what that was last week, but then you see what's happened this week with the US inflation. So I think it's a big risk for inflation. You look at the other slide from prices for road transportation, that will be on 3 to 5% higher than before. That's the transportation cost. Then you look at Mikael's presentation on ocean rates. It will be perhaps double, but it will be double perhaps 2-3 years ahead if we don't get more available transportation. So we will have a different level. It's just how bad will it be? Because transportation is one thing, but then you have the steel availability and you have the wood availability and you have general consumption.
Your company is or was established in Sweden, as you said before, and Sweden is quite specific regarding its own response to the pandemic because it was less strict than many other countries. Again, with the benefit of hindsight, what do you think about this approach? Would you recommend it to other countries, especially with regards to economic outcome of the whole situation?
The economic outcome is fantastic for Sweden because the economy situation is quite good. it's really good. It's not as good as it was 2019, but we have managed it quite well.
So would you recommend this less strict?
But I can recommend it because we didn't close down everything. So if you look at schools, people, how people feel, I mean, we have managed to keep society open without having too much problem with people getting sick of, I mean, social, what you say in English? I mean, you know, psychological problems. Yeah. It has been okay in Sweden, but what we failed was to protect the old people. So we were very, very late in protecting the people that could die. So we had a lot of old people that died because we didn't take care of them. That was the big failure.
Thank you very much. It's slightly a pessimistic tone or note, so we can change it during our Q&A session right now with all the speakers. Thank you very much, Jan, for your input to our today's seminar. I have last reminder for all of you in the auditorium. Should you have any questions, you can ask in the chat room, or you can just raise your hand via the platform right now and ask directly. If there is no question, I will ask the last one for all the speakers. And this is, what do you think, which of the major region, global economic region, meaning North America, Europe, and Asia, which of this region, in your eyes, has tackled the crisis, the pandemic crisis, just the pandemic crisis, not Brexit, or the pandemic crisis in the best way compared with other, especially in the economic terms, but as well, of course, in terms of epidemiological response to the situation. Am I clear? So maybe we can start with Mikael.
Sure. Yeah, if we are talking about who have done it best, then again we are having a little bit of political question, and again I will try to be neutral, but I think it's a little bit curiosity to see that if you look at the numbers of people infected and died in a country size like China, where it seems that it all started, if you compare that with Latin America, and also how quick they were back supplying us all with masks and anti this and anti that, and opening up. That is for me as a private person a bit scary without starting any rumors. But yeah, I will not comment more on that part.
Better.
Thank you for the question. It's really difficult to answer, and I don't want
to. Just a general remark is enough. Thank you.
From my point of view, yeah, looking at some statistics, you can see that, for example, Czech Republic didn't act properly, and we were in huge troubles a few weeks ago. And also now reading articles in newspapers, you can see that India are in huge troubles. But when you calculate it per capita or per 100 million inhabitants, then they are not so bad as we were in Czech Republic. But I really don't have a very clear answer for this. No, sorry, I cannot give you a clear answer. Yeah.
Okay, it's quite a difficult question. I know, but it's just not from the statistics, but from your own experience as players who are really present globally. So that was my message. But of course, it's quite difficult. I know. So Jan, do you have any comment, because you already you had already comments on the situation in Sweden? So how do you see it in other parts of the world?
No, but I mean, we are following this up on each country, and safety for our personnel in the factory is number one. But who is good and who is bad? I mean, Brazil is a catastrophe. India is a catastrophe. And I have weekly discussions with my buyers in India, where you have people dying. We have stopped factory. It's not a good situation. But I think that later, what really happened, there will be a lot of conclusions later. We learn a lot in every country how to handle this. So I think it's difficult to say who did well and who did not well. But I agree with Mikael's comments on China, that we are now traveling 68% in China as compared to 2019. They are back.
And very last question from me, because there is no question from the auditorium. It will be even more general, maybe, than the previous one. What do you think about the potential deglobalization? Because even some economists remark that there is the risk, or there is the possibility of deglobalization because of the pandemic, because of localization of the supply, because of nearshoring, shortening of the supply chains, because of the geopolitical tensions between West and China, and because of some nationalism and the effort of the even countries like United States to move the production back to their homeland. So how do you see it in the let's say in the next 10 years? Do you see it like the globalization from the pre-pandemic period will continue, or there will be some change, slowing down of the globalization, or even deglobalization tendency? So we can start now with Jan, and then with Petra and Michael.
If you look at SKF, what we have said is localization, and now we do that. So we have put people on developing suppliers in both Europe and East Europe to find new supply. We are moving our volumes back. And if you look at Mexico, for example, where we buy a lot from Korea, but now we don't have suppliers there. What do? We develop suppliers. So we go with some suppliers where they set up a factory. It will take a couple of years, but that's what we are doing. I cannot speak really for the whole industry. I can speak for what we do, but we localize.
Okay, Petra?
Okay, I fully agree with what Jan already present in his presentation, that it's moving to the near sourcing or near shoring, that these companies would like to back up their difficulties, or to avoid some risks or limit their risks. So I do believe that in 10 years, near shoring will be a trend more than globalization.
Michael?
Yeah, I also see that there will be a change, but again, then the consumers have to realize that they need to pay more for their product. And again, also, as Jan has in his presentation, I forgot to mention that as well, that the CO2 and the extra taxes that are or will be on bunker and fuel will also do that you will see a change. But in my eyes, before the consumer will pay a little bit more for the product, then you will still see that they will have a production of the cheapest place. And you can take an example as a Dane. I can see and follow discussions about the food. There's a lot of all those people who are against that we are transporting live animals from Denmark to Poland to have them slaughtered, and then we send back the meat to Denmark and sell it. Yes, but the same family who is against that, they are not the ones who are picking up the 2 crowns more per kilo package of food in the supermarket. But overall, that is just an example. But before we all think about where is it coming from, then you will not see a change. But I think it will be coming because it is a growing trend that people are more aware about environment and CO2 neutral and all that. So it will come. But again, it comes when the consumers have more power, and they will do buying from the right sources.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you. Lea, do you want something to add?
I don't need to add anything because you debate really in a deep details, and I thank you, all of you, very much for your participation.
The same with me. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lea, for organizing this event. Thank you, of course, Nordic Chamber of Commerce in the Czech Republic. Thank you, especially the speakers of the seminar, Michal Shelgard, Managing Director of DSV RNC, Petr Chocholatý, Managing Director of the same company, DSV, its road division, and Jan Zoderlund, Indirect Purchasing Director of SKF company from Sweden. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us today in this forum. Hopefully we will meet next time in person.